Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly O'Horo, and this is Adaptable Behavior Explained. Welcome back to Adaptable Behavior Explained. I'm your host, Kelly O'Horo, and today we're going to talk about a form of trauma that is incredibly common, deeply misunderstood, and often minimized, even by people who are experiencing it. We're talking about medical trauma. If you have ever survived a heart attack, a pulmonary embolism, a stroke, a diagnosis for disease like cancer, a traumatic accident like a car accident or any other type of serious injury, and then wondered, why don't I feel okay even though it's over and that I survived, this episode is for you. Because when we survive something, it doesn't automatically mean that our nervous system knows that we're safe or that our brain has been updated with today's information. So here's what I want you to hear clearly. You can be profoundly traumatized by something your body lived through, even if everyone tells you you're lucky to be alive. Medical trauma isn't just about what happened to you. It's about what your brain and body learned throughout the process of the situation. So in this episode, you're going to learn why medical events are often stored as trauma in the brain, how the brain categorizes threat to life and keeps you braced, waiting for the other shoe to drop, why so many people feel like they're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and the grief that comes when your body can't return to what it once could do. And then we're going to talk about the good stuff, how EMDR therapy helps the brain update after medical trauma or an injury. So let's get to some basics here. Why are medical events traumatic? Here's the truth. Trauma isn't defined by an event. It's defined by how overwhelmed or helpless or powerless we felt at the time something happened. Medical trauma often includes a sudden threat to life, loss of our bodily autonomy. Even when I tore my ACL, I couldn't sit down to go to the bathroom without help at first, and I was so angry about it. So we really minimize or underreport how we are emotionally impacted by certain things. Invasive procedures can put us in that sense of helplessness, uncertainty, waiting for diagnoses or doctor's report or test results to come in. And then lack of control over outcomes or timelines that we have to go through when we're dealing with these things. So some examples of medical trauma that might happen to you or someone you love or know are things like heart attacks, pulmonary embolisms, strokes, seizures, diagnoses for different illnesses or diseases, autoimmune diagnoses, emergency surgeries, going to the ICU for something serious. And then things that most people would consider trauma, like traumatic injuries from accidents or falls. Chronic illnesses with unpredictable flare-ups are another one that I often see in my office. And so when your life is threatened, your brain does exactly what it's designed to do. It sounds the alarm. And so now we're going to talk a little bit more about the brain, threat, and why we sometimes stay braced when we've been through something really hard. Our brains are prediction machines or prediction engines. Once a biological threat happens, the brain says, this nearly killed us. I will not let that happen again. So it stays on high alert. And sometimes we even kind of inaccurately think about things that we do as reasons that we can prevent it or keep ourselves safe. So that part of our brain can stay on high alert, and it can look like hypervigilance to bodily sensations. These are the people that are like chronically saying, what's this? What does that mean? Something's wrong. And they make a bigger deal out of something than is necessary because they're looking for those threat cues. There can be anxiety about symptoms or medical appointments. What's the doctor going to say? When is it going to happen? What if it's too long? How do I get in sooner? And then there can be panic when the body feels off. And for those of you who have been following me for a while, panic is part of the grief system or the loss system. And so we start to kind of freak out about what might be going wrong that will put us in imminent threat. We can also have difficulty relaxing or trusting that our body is okay, which kind of creates a self-fulfilling prophecy in that we become more nervous and anxious when we're worrying about something not being okay or something bad coming. And then constantly waiting for something bad to happen creates stress, like I just talked about. So there's a feeling that some people describe as that waiting for the other shoe to drop, and that's basically a braced nervous system that's on high alert or vigilant. So your brain hasn't updated yet with the fact that the issue is over It's being treated. You've got your outcome given to you. You're healed even. There's no more medical reason for you to have any physical response. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the powerlessness and the fear or the loss of control that often happens during one of these medical crises. Medical trauma is uniquely powerful because you can't outrun it. We don't ever choose when it's happening. We can't fight it. We need our bodies to be in existence, so we have to work through it. And often there's so much powerlessness because there's nothing we can do. We can't fix it. Someone else is making the decisions. Usually medical providers are telling us what our options or choices are. And so then we have to make choice points that don't maybe line up with being in control. And so our body is doing things without our permission. And healing timelines can be unclear and sometimes in more dire situations, endless, where there's not any potential hope for it to be over. And so this powerlessness creates chronic stress in our bodies. It creates anxiety, oftentimes hopelessness or fear of the future, of the life that we once imagined for ourselves. And we can go into some resentment or feelings of betrayal by our own bodies. And then when we get through with all of those complicated emotions, there's often grief that we are doing everything in our darn power to avoid feeling. But I can tell you that grief is how we move through to get back to a place of okayness. So we have to grieve the body that we once had or our state of being that we were once able to adopt. And this is the piece that does not get talked about enough. And if you think about it, medical doctors aren't trained in this area. So they're giving you data or points of fact or statistics around whatever's going on, but they're not usually talking to us about the emotional toll and turmoil that happens related to medical issues. And sometimes healing doesn't mean that we get to go back to the way it used to be. So if your body can't do what it once did, maybe it tires more easily, maybe it functions differently, and you have to learn other ways to respond or react to the situation or your environment, or accommodate things that you used to be able to do or get more help than you want to ask for, there's real loss there. And that's something that most of us end up having to face at some point in our life. And grief isn't weakness. Grief is a natural, biological, affective circuit that we're wired to have. And it's an important aspect of our human condition to pay attention to, because unprocessed grief can keep our experience, our trauma, the medical situation that we were talking about, stuck as if it's still happening, even when the threat has passed. So the good news is there is therapy that can help with this. And it's some of the most powerful and exciting work that I like to do in my own practice, because EMDR therapy helps heal medical trauma. And it's super powerful, especially if the event or the scenario that happened are in the past. Because trauma memories are often stored as sensations in our body. We get stuck with images or visuals that we can't seem to unlock. There are emotions that happened at the time of an event that seem to stay on like they're live. And with those things come beliefs like I'm not safe, or I'm damaged, or my body will fail me. And in medical trauma, the brain often hasn't received the updated messages like, this is over, I survived, I can heal, my body's okay, I can be okay, or I can learn, or I can adapt. These are all more functional thoughts that we can have about our situations if we work through the emotional experiences that oftentimes got stuck in trauma time based on what happened at the time of the event. So with EMDR therapy, we can update the brain or kind of defrag the system. And so through bilateral stimulation and other forms of taxation of memory, EMDR allows our nervous system to reprocess the traumatic medical memories and the shock of the situations that happened, the pain that is often associated with issues and incidents, and it helps to integrate our current medical reality. It brings down our hypervigilance, and it helps us to restore trust in our body, because our bodies are so magnificent and they can really heal from so many things. Now, I realize that not all illnesses can be healed from, and not all diseases are curable. And it doesn't change, EMDR doesn't change that point of fact. But what it can help us to do is help us to change our relationship with our circumstances. It can help us to grieve what was, what we wanted, what we imagined, and shift us into a perspective that is no longer about survival, but more about presence and acceptance. And I know that's not the answer that some of you want to hear, depending on what you have gone through. But if bad things are going to happen and we don't have any control about that, then wouldn't it be better if we could get to a place of peace with our circumstances as they are and acceptance? And so our brain can learn that was then, this is now, and I can adapt a more functional way to think about whatever it is that I've been through. And so EMDR doesn't erase what happened. It helps us to live without constant fear. It helps us to respond instead of react. It helps us to feel more at home or present in our body. And it helps us to grieve what was lost while honoring what remains and is still present for us to experience. And the healing means that our body no longer has to scream to be heard. The dashboard of unawareness gets to quiet down and be more settled. So let's recap. Medical trauma is real and it's valid and it's often underreported and minimized. And the brain stays braced after life-threatening events because we're biologically wired to try to protect ourselves, and our survival response happens. And then the powerlessness and uncertainty can amplify our trauma. And then grief is often part of the medical recovery. EMDR helps our brain to update and integrate safety of now or acceptance of current circumstances. So if your body has lived through something overwhelming, you're not broken, you're adaptive. And when you think about what it's been through, it deserves the time and the love and the honor and the respect about what it's had to deal with. And so do you. So if this episode resonated with you, please make sure to share it with somebody that could benefit, and subscribe to our channel, or leave us some comments about how you've experienced this, or maybe if you need some more resources to find an EMDR therapist in your area, we can give you a hand with that. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you are someone who's going through one of these examples that I talked about, please know that you're not alone and there is hope. Thank you so much. And until next time, don't forget to lead with love. It'll never steer you wrong.